Next, I'm honored to welcome the Honourable Minister George Heyman of Environment and Climate Change Strategy.
Well, thanks so much. I'm not sure where I'm going to start, but I'm going to start by acknowledging and being grateful and thinking about what it means to be here with you all on the traditional unceded territory of Musqueam, the Squamish and the Tsleil-Waututh people. Good to see you, Russell. And I want to talk a little bit later about some of my learnings as recently as this week about how working with and learning from and collaborating with and partnering with and stewarding with First Nations makes us all better and takes us all to a better place. I'll come back to that. I want to thank Anita because one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot in this job in the time that I've had it, which is a little over 6 years, is there are a lot of things that are creating sustainability problems on our planet, in our province, in our city. And if we're going to say no to things, we have to have things to say yes to. So hearing from people like Anita about, and other entrepreneurs and inventors and clever people and people with ambition who want to create sustainable alternatives is so important, because I think when we can see a practical, better way to do something or use something or have a product, most people are going to want to take it and run with it. I also want to say a little bit about events at UBC. About 8 years ago, and now Premier David Eby, and I'm glad you had a chance to have some words from him on video earlier today, asked me to come and do a speaking engagement at UBC Forum that a friend of his was putting on. He couldn't make it. So I came out and I met a young man named Miguel Rosso and others who were working with him in a sustainability group on campus, sponsoring a bunch of dialogues and movies and discussions and panels around sustainability and the environment. And I remember feeling at that time how inspiring it was that he had packed an auditorium, that he was working on this, that he and others were making this a core part of their time as students. And so I'm particularly impressed, having met Millian along with others on a youth advisory council for Premier Eby just a few months ago, to see today's event. All the people you brought together, all the ideas you brought together, the ambition and the scope of it. I am grateful for your work. Thank you very much. So if we are going to work for sustainability in Vancouver, in British Columbia, in Canada, in communities around our country, around the world, we need to do it at every level. I get at this point in my life to work on it from the level of government. I have the opportunity to suggest policies, to bring in programs, to bring in regulations and legislation to promote everything from emission reduction to elimination of not all plastics, but many plastics, which will be coming later this year, and a number of other environmental initiatives. But I was thinking as I was listening to the speakers, when was it that I first started to be really conscious about the environment? Was it when I was just in the forest as a kid, and a park as a kid? And all of those things are true, but I think for everybody there's a bit of a light bulb moment on many issues, but in this case, environment. For me, it was when I was a high school student. A friend had invited me up to listen to a lecture at Simon Fraser, and on the trip down the mountain, I passed a billboard, and it just struck me between the eyes, and it was very simple, it just said, ecology, look it up, it concerns you. And I have never been able to get those words out of my mind, because they really made me think. And I try to continue to think about what it is I do every day, what it is I can do to make a difference, how I can help bring people together so that we can work together to make a difference. So one of the things that I do is I try to take every single opportunity I have to speak to young people, to speak to students, and to listen. So we have youth engagement strategies that were just undertaken by the Climate Action Secretariat, bringing groups of youth from around the province together, in one case in person and in another case virtually, to talk to the people in government who are developing the different climate policies to reduce our emissions, about what young people care about, how they perceive what we're doing, and what they think we can do and how we can do it better. We have engaged as government with the Youth Climate Corps, which is an initiative out of Nelson, which I hope, and I know they will expand to other communities around British Columbia, to take young people and put them to work on climate-related, meaningful work, whether it is restoring habitat, reducing emissions, working with municipalities, and just giving people who are concerned about our future something very concrete to do that will make a difference, that will help them build skills, that will help them make a bit of money to go to school, and that will help them interact with the community. I've also, in the past, just over the summer and the fall, I have taken the opportunity to meet with the Alma Mater Society students here at UBC to talk about their sustainability initiative, to also meet with the overall UBC Climate and Sustainability Group. I met with students at Douglas College. I'm going out to the University of Victoria on Monday, and I have been to both high schools, in one case a group of grades 4 to 6, and in other cases university classes and activists, to hear, and it's as important for me to hear what people care about as to talk to people about what we're doing. And I think one of the things that will make a difference, and the government traditionally has never done enough of, is to engage actively with young people, to recognize that young people are full members of our community, and most importantly will be most impacted of all of us who are alive today by the decisions we make today and by the actions we take today. So that's very important to me. I also have learned a lot in my time in government as we've advanced our attempts at reconciliation with First Nations. And I had the honor in 2018 of bringing in an entirely new Environmental Assessment Act that was based, written into the principles of the Act at the start, on seeking consensus through collaboration with First Nations in alignment with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And we just made the first decision under that Act. All the ones under the old Act worked their way through the system, and we just issued a decision. And the way that decision was made under the new Act involved First Nations and First Nations representatives, Indigenous knowledge, opinion at every stage of the project, and resulted in substantial changes to project design along the way. And we have many more to do. It won't always be a smooth road, but we learn from that and we do better by doing that. Last week I attended, we have a number of reconciliation agreements with nations and groups of nations around the province, and I attended 2 of our annual tables over the last week, one with Saltanook and another with the Mongol Treaty Nations on Vancouver Island. And as we've continued to have meetings, the sense of conflict has given way to a sense of collaboration and a sense of vision and a sense of what we can do together and how much better we can do together when we reach agreements that are meaningful about collaborative stewardship of land and water and the environment, and building a sustainable economy that really can work for everyone and that will leave our planet and our environment in at least as good a state as we left it. I know I have a tendency to talk on, and I know there's many more things to do, but I just want to talk about a couple of initiatives that we've done in government that may tie into some of what you're talking about today. I see a lot of great displays here, a lot of groups that are taking action in big and small ways, and I see a lot of people here who are interested in that. When COVID struck, we were looking for ways to provide employment to people who lost jobs. And we decided early that if we could do that in a way that also advanced some of our environmental and sustainability goals, it would be better for everybody. And if we did that in collaboration with First Nations and young people, it would be even better. So we had a goal of providing employment opportunities for Indigenous youth in particular and young people generally. And two of the things we began that are still going on today in the 4th and 5th years was, one of them was the Healthy Watersheds Initiative. And we took people out to a bunch of projects in watersheds around the province that activists had been highlighting for a number of years as needing rehabilitation with concrete plans about how to do it, and gave people real-life experience in rehabilitating these watersheds and wetlands in a number of ways. And the results we've seen have been a number of enhanced values, whether it is removing invasive species, promoting places for fish to spawn, but also allowing the water that resulted in for instance, in the significant flooding 2 years ago in the Fraser Valley, to be managed in a more natural way by allowing the watershed to be put back into a state where overflows could be more naturally absorbed. We now have the development of a watershed security strategy, plans for co-governance of watersheds with local communities and First Nations, and a $100 million beginning in a watershed sustainability fund to advance this work around the province. And the other thing we did, I'm going to close by tying back into plastic, was what we now call the Clean Coast, Clean Waters Initiative. And it provided employment for people in Indigenous nations up and down our coast, as well as tourism operators who have been temporarily put out of business, with the job of going up and down our coast and cleaning plastic garbage. And for those of you who have not ever been in a remote piece of our coastline and walked up behind the high tide line, what you see is exactly what you heard about from the speaker before me. Bits of styrofoam, plastic bottles, broken down bits of plastic that are getting ground down into microplastics and making their way into the food chain if they aren't picked up. And this is the result of plastic waste from all over the globe because it travels on cruise. And for 4 years, we've had people collecting and cleaning up over 4,000 kilometers of coastline, close to 200 derelict vessels, and taking much of that plastic and finding ways to upcycle or recycle over 2/3 of it. So those are a couple of very concrete examples of things that government can do if we think creatively, and government can do with communities. And I'll simply close by saying, if we want to promote sustainability, if we want to do something about the climate emergency, if we want to do things about reconciliation and creating a more sustainable set of ecosystems around our province and around the globe, it takes actions by government, it takes actions by industry, it takes actions by communities, and it takes actions by families, and it takes actions by individuals. And one of the most important actions I always encourage young people to do is when you go back and you talk to your parents, people like me, don't let them off the hook. Tell them why you care and tell them why they should care too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister George Heyman, for your words on interconnectivity between different sectors and how through governments, through individuals, through communities, we can really create change.